Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm going to paint a bunny. I'm going to be doing this actually for maybe a surprise for one of my grandchildren. But a real fun one, little Cottontail. I see these every morning on my walks and stuff, and I thought it'd be fun to do that to show you some of the emulation process that I use, for wildlife, for paintings like this. We have a lot of different looks and stuff coming, and some more westerns. I have one we're going to be painting right there behind us there. Now, one of the other requests I'm having is how do I go about drawing that? And I read two more requests on the channel this morning for that, so I will set that all up. I already have this one on here, and I show you a combination. I use three different ways in which to get an image over onto my painting surface. Drawing is essential. There's three parts of a painting that I really say that you need to study and work on. One's the technique, which I like to show you a lot of here on the channel. Color theory. You need color. So color, technique, and what's very important is drawing and your drawing skills, because that tells you when you're off. But I also want to show you some ways that you can get and paint gorgeous paintings without having a lot of skills as a drawing. But drawing is something that you all need to study. And so I'll show you that. I'm going to film some of that up this weekend, and then we'll have it hopefully next week onto the channel. I'm going to start showing you how I draw and put compositional work together too, because it's a little different. I use a lot of different little homemade tools to help me. I use, like on this particular one, when I put this, I use a technique called sight size drawing technique, and breaking it up into the shapes and stuff, and circles and ovals and this, and then I use a little tool like this. And so what I do is I take my reference photo, what I want, up to the same size that I look across. There's grid methods, transfer methods, lots of kinds of things. We'll talk about those, okay? But this morning we're going to paint a rabbit. We're going to paint this, and we're going to do it alla prima. And I want to do it a little bit more casual, but I really want to capture realistically up in and around this area. Then we'll let some of this other area out here kind of fade away. So we'll do an alla prima quick portrait type technique, which ought to be a lot of fun. This board that I have here is 16 by 10 or 11, I think it is. Just a nice size board that I felt. I don't like to take the animals and stuff up too much past life size, and this is the size. Matter of fact, I had one out this morning when I went for a walk right on the front yard, and I went, yeah, okay, he's about that big. So they're out all over here, everywhere here, and I just absolutely love them. Now I have it here into this, and the photo itself, when it prints out, looks a little bit more yellowish, but like I told you before, I have a big 42-inch monitor right here, and you can get those really reasonable now. And I just put the photo up onto the monitor, and I'm looking at him right here. And so areas like right in here where his eye looks really dark on the monitor, I can see, yeah, there's burnt sienna going right around a real dark inside pupil. So I see more colors and more tones on that, and I do like to paint from that. So you'll see that. And for our memberships and stuff, I'll put this reference photo in, and you can just download that. And if you put it up on any kind of larger monitor, you could see colors a little bit better. But let's go in here and let's work this. So I gave the board a coat of the Heritage Canvas Prep Medium. And what that does is just gives you a nice tooth. It doesn't have any vinyl or anything in the medium, so the paintbrush grabs, and that's what I like to do when I do alla prima. I'm going to use this palette that I'm going to use here. That is, the Heritage MultiMedia, colors. I designed these colors. It's made by our company. I designed these, and so I teach with a lot of these techniques, and I show you some of the different things that these colors can do. But this list of colors here, rather than go through it, this is my standard palette. Rather than go through it, I'll list all the colors in the video description. So look for that right below, okay? And I use Heritage and the Global Arts Fusion brushes. I like old ones. When I'm doing alla prima, I like really old ones. So I have a whole bunch of ones that I've used for a long time, older ones. This is a 2-inch flat, and I use it mostly for varnishing when it becomes old. This one's about 8-10 years old. I start to use it for fun techniques like this. So I'm going to take some water, nice dirty water here too, by the way, and I'm going to take a little bit of medium beige and some gray color. I like those. And these will pull out a lot of neutral colors that you'll see up here into the rabbit. So I'm going to push some of this into the background, basically in a real thin wash like this through the painting, just to give some interest like this. I started doing this stuff like this a few years ago, and everyone started really liking them, including myself. And my customers, basically my collectors and stuff, really like the techniques that I do like this, and gives it a real impressionistic type of look to it, and more than having just a solid background. Now I paint a lot with solid backgrounds as well, but I do love impressionism and stuff. So what I do with that is I kind of simplify the backgrounds and stuff like that, simplify the areas, and then I look for areas of light and dark, like over in the photo there. You see that he's going to have some rocks and some stuff up there, maybe some greens and some burnt siennas. I'll see some of those kinds of tones. And what I'll do is I'm just going to simplify this really quickly here. We'll just grab, that didn't pick up quite enough color there for me. So let's just reset that again. And we'll pick up some of that right up in here. Some of that will come right down there into the ground, down into that area. So this is a real loose watercolor kind of look to it. But see, well, look what it does in through here when you do that. Now you can come in and focus some of these tones a little bit more, a little heavier paint here like this, and focus some of those areas, those tones. You can hit it with water. I like to do that. If I find that a drip and stuff is too too distracting, I just do this. I take it off just a bit, and I like that. There's just all kinds of ways, but I like this kind of real simplistic kind of look to it here to begin with, like this. And since there's a lot of warm tones up there, let's just do this too. Because I do like a bit of the sky kind of color. So we'll take some blue, some white here, and let's again thin it out with a lot of water, and let's just push a little bit of that color here. That's a little too streaky for me. So what I'll do is I'll just wiggle my brush here, which will cause the color to mix up a bit more and soften out here. So we'll push just a bit of that. See, I like just a touch of that, some of that blues and stuff there. And you can back it out if you got it too much into your sketch, or you redo it again like I do. Just redo it again if you lose too much of it. Now, I don't like this solid line right here, so I want to break that up, blues into these colors a bit more. And see, it's just a real fun way to and especially if you're going to emulate, back trees, forests, that kind of stuff, some of the colors. You could sit there and you can look at your photo and say, yeah, well, there's some darks art up here. That those darks really do help him advance. And so I'd look at this and say, okay, well, that dark does help him advance, but maybe I'll move that dark right there, right up here towards the front. Let's just do that. Maybe a bit of burnt sienna and green, a bit of the blue, so it cools it, so slightly different color here. Okay, and let's just add some water to this. Tap some water through this here. And let's just look right where that dark is, right up there. And we'll just soften that out a bit, give it a little bit of interest. Okay, that's going to help him really kind of advance. See, that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll put a little dose of that right in here as well. Here, so we'll see some of that coming through. So, a lot of this is just really good color theory stuff, and learning your color theory and knowing where, some of your contrasts and stuff will be. Now, I may want to just pull up from this and soften that up, give a little bit more of a look, back trees or something. There's a little blue, little trees. Sometimes I leave it just real light pressure with your brush and a dirty paper towel. It just does great things and just puts on some of that interest back there. Now rinse this out. I'm notorious for forgetting to rinse out my big brush when I use it. So Just rinse that out, set that down there. If the Heritage Colors ever dries inside one of your brushes and stuff, and you have a hard time, you never ever throw away one of your brushes, your Global Arts, your Fusion brushes, because you can always bring those back. And I use the hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer will remove the color out of the brush even after it's dry. So, and it's safe for your hands. It's made for your hands. So, you know, there are some really nice things you can use to you know, to help take out color that has dried just a bit. Now, of course, I've taken out some of my drawing and stuff here, so what I can do is just take a little light bit of water here and bring some of it back, where I can get some of at least my little first reference marks. I don't need the whole drawing here, just my first reference marks, so I can find him a little bit there. But you can see just a little water on there. You can bring it back, find some of his, find some of him here. You could take, you know, it doesn't really make a difference, but see, you can use, I call this, it's almost like a negative painting. You know, use your paper towel and kind of redraw, like here's going to be his back, while still leaving some of the colors and stuff in, you know, in those particular areas. So you can just refine him a little bit, and it's, and you can see how he is just a ghost of him starting to come through before we even start painting him. Now, let's paint. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out here with like my number 8, and I'm going to follow basically when I paint something like this. I really like the Premier Coup technique, starting with the darks and working half tones lighter. Sometimes I'll go the darks and then I'll jump up several times. So in other words, when you're looking at your value scale, if I put it in here in dark, I would jump up a half tone. You'd say this is a 4 and this is a 10. A half tone would be right in here about a 7, halfway between your dark and light. And so you each time work up towards your light that way. But the big thing is I like to put out the darks, and there's some really neat darks on him, like, and I pick out those colors really easy, burnt sienna and a little bit of blue, and you get these nice darks. Let's find, and you know, he'll have these nice darks here, this little cottontail, up here onto the tips of his ears. And I don't want to use, like you'd see, kind of a rounding stroke up there like that, but I want to paint him a little bit more alla prima and a little bit more brushwork to it. So I'm going to relax and relax my strokes here just a bit and not use perfect. So I use the corner, sometimes a little bit of the flat of the brush to kind of pull on. I want to paint him more impressionistic here. Now, see, that's the darkest tone. Then it lightens up a bit. Matter of fact, you can just grab a little bit of beige and gray right here since we just want to use a bit of that tone right in here, and we can widen out and lighten up his ears. You try to, when you're painting impressionistic like this, you try to set those areas, those tones, as quickly and efficiently as possible without brushing too much. And if you notice my long handle brush, I'm way back here onto the brush, and I might just scumble a little bit. That just means to move back and forth real quick as I just kind of fill in that area there. And it's all up to you how much detail. I want to put a little more detail on that dark right there. Let's just restate that. A little blue and the burnt sienna. It's all up to you, the individual artist, you know, how much work you're going to put into, you know, a particular element and stuff like that. And that, you know, each one of us is a little different, but I really like the simplicity. And I really like that the little bit of blue came out there on that. So that worked out kind of nice. Let's take some of that, a little bit of that beige and some of this, and let's just kind of scumble that. A little too much blue there, so I'll back that out with a little more beige right there. But I'll leave some of that blue. That's just a nice color tone. Yeah, it's cooler and it's a little grayer than what is actually there in the subject, but it works. It works for me on him right now. And you can see there's a nice little light, so maybe I take a little bit of the light and the gray right out here. This is a bit too much detail, too quick, Dave, but you know, sometimes I'm right into that and I want to get some of that color in, especially like his ears. I always find the ears here on the cottontails are really interesting. You know, almost a flesh tone, which is basically a light orange here. So I take yellow and orange, yellow and red, and some light here, and we start making this flesh tone. I'm painting pure acrylic right now because I don't need to do anything else. I'm painting just pure acrylic here. So we'll take this nice light, kind of a flesh tone there. Yeah, that's real close. Just a touch redder right in there. Let's just put a bit of that in there. And just a touch of that. Don't fill up the whole thing, just a touch of that. Looking at the tones, this is the color theory part of it. The brush calligraphy that I use here to put into things, that's your technique. And of course your drawing, getting your shape of your drawing. Let's go just a touch lighter pink. Then I'm going to have to quit painting this and go right into the darks and stuff. That's just a bit too much. Let's put a bit of gray right in there. Bit too red. But it's kind of a neat tone. So I just want to come close to it, into emulating that. Doesn't have to be perfect at any manner of means, but I just want to get a little closer. Let's just scumble in a little bit of light right there, which is right on the edge of that. Just a couple of quick strokes with a little bit more white into it here. And maybe just dirty up our brush here. Just make a mark right down through that to kind of break that just a bit there. And you can always use your finger like I just did there to soften something up. Now, of course, in him, if you want to get it perfect, there's a vein line running down there, a lot of other things going in there. But that's, especially at this part of the painting, that's just too much. But there is a little burnt sienna right down here. So I'm just going to capture that real quick. Right down there like that. Maybe this is a bit more sienna. Just a little brushwork. Just a little brushwork right through there. Will give him a lot of interest. Moving your brush in, when you're painting alla prima, you look at what we call the calligraphy of the brush, the movement of your brush. How is that, how is that working? How does that go? Let's go a little bit darker around here. And I also use this, which is like a little sketching technique. So it's almost like a little drawing, sketching kind of technique. Take some of these darks. Run those right in there. That's just a nice tone. Okay, so now that's not. So basically, you could start like that. There's a lot of wildlife artists that would start like that and work down through. Most, and you'll hear me say this a lot, and then hardly ever do it, but most wildlife artists believe in starting in at the eye and working out. You get that eye, you get that center of interest correct, then you move out from there. I'm 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. I can absolutely, as a wildlife artist, say, yeah, that's a really good idea. But a lot of times here's the thing is, I love to paint and I get excited about painting an area and I just love the ears on rabbits and stuff. So yeah, okay, maybe I'll start out there and work that area a bit and refine that a bit with a few more little tones and stuff and capture that area and closer to what I want. Then I'll move on to some of the other areas there. But everyone's a little different. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. He has lovely orange, real quick orange, kind of bright colors, but we want to start out slightly to the dark. And so there's going to be a tone right there. There's going to be a tone right up here, moving through the tip of his nose and right down through here. So it's kind of in the dark side. I look a lot of times when I'm painting something like this and painting fur on animals and everything, I look for what we call undertones, tones that are that you see under the fur. That's what I'm looking for. So look right up underneath there. You'll see some of that nice warm, burnt sienna tone. We'll start it out. It's a little bit lighter, more orange, but we'll start it out here with the burnt sienna slightly dark, and then we'll work into it. So coming back here, back by his back of his leg, back where his tail is going to be back through there, we might take a bit of that blue and dark here to set that real dark that we see right in there as well. Okay, so this is what I do a lot with the Premier Coup is I set in these kinds of darks that you see. I'm going to add a little bit of extender. So I have extender medium out here. It's dirty from my landscapes. You've seen it dirty like this on the last several videos because a cap of extender like this lasts for a long time. And so I had some extender. This slows down the drying time. It also thins out the paint. I'm using it to thin out the paint, but more than anything else, to make the shadow, make these colors slide. Now, there's also a real good thing in techniques that, you know, and I say it to you in landscapes, that shadows are transparent and highlights are opaque. So, and you get a lot of interest through your animals here by using transparent shadows. So you'll see I'll make that kind of mark, lift up the pressure here, move through, especially on this little bunny. And let's just move some of that tone through right out to there, because we want this back edge of him to kind of recede back here as well. So I'll just work that tone a bit. That looks pretty good. Let's take some of that, which we're going to have. We might paint a few of these rocks and stuff like that up here as well. Okay, so we have that. There's kind of a burnt sienna and blue, a little grayish kind of tone. We'll pick up a bit of that right up here, right up on the underneath his nose there, right up there, top of his, and then the top of his mouth, his upper lip, and then his lower. Right there, you'll see it right in there, just a bit of it. We can also transparent this up here. We could also add a little bit of gray, maybe a little bit more blue here, just change the tone just a bit. We can see some of that right on the transition between his neck here and his body, and we'll just brush through like this. Don't leave your mark too much. Remember that shadows and dark colors are more transparent and stuff, so we just want to vary this tone a bit here. Just leave a few little marks of that. There'll be a bit of that coming right down. So I'll just scumble it on like this. This is called scumbling. I try to follow, though, the contour. So like here, so I put that on. That's a nice rounding thing. And then his back, the back, basically the haunch, the point of his thigh there, just kind of rounds this way a bit. This part of his body pulls down a bit. So I'm looking for those undertones, you know, what you see here. Where do you see that tone? How do you see it pulling down? A bit of it pulling down. Okay, up here to the top of his head. A bit of that there, a bit of that right down here, causing it to round a bit. Here, right up over his eye. Just use the tip of your brush, scumble some of that in there. Like that, maybe a bit right in there. Now this was, and see, this is where it'll change. So right here, you'll see his, and I put a line right under his eye. So actually a little too close to his eye. Now that I look at it, there's more of a little bit of a space there. So I'll just move it down a bit. That's your drawing skills. You know, your drawing skills help you, because when you, sometimes during the painting, after you're applying the painting and you're focusing in on the area, you can see a subtle place that you might have been off just a bit on your drawing. And that really works. Let's pull. So you're always working on your drawing skills. So let's pull this way. Okay, and pull down that way, like that. And let's pull this one down just a bit. So I'm looking at that hair. See, what's great about painting, you know, it's like I tell them about painting bunnies, painting elk, painting some of this, painting dogs, you know, painting their animal portraits, is the hair can tell you the calligraphy of it, just like painting the birds. So I'm a big advocate and believer of painting all different kinds of animals, elements, stuff like that, so that you can learn all the different parts of calligraphy and stuff, how it all goes. So that goes in there really nice. That actually worked in pretty nice for a nice undertone. And I'm going to go work on his eye up here. Now I usually have right here. Yes, it is. I have it used, it's small. This is a synthetic number 4 filbert made by Global, same one that makes the Fusion. But the synthetic is a little bit stiffer, and I use this a lot whenever I'm painting around the eye and eye details. And I also use a stick to rest my hand, most of the time with dirty paint on my hand, but I'll use that. Now, when I go to look at when I'm looking at the bunny right there in big, I see more of it's a little darker burnt sienna. So I'm going to take a burnt sienna and a little bit of blue into that. I'm going to add just a touch of extender here, just to thin it just a bit. You could use water as well. And I want to come in, yeah, that's a good color. so it has a little bit of burnt sienna undertone here. And I'm going to shape the eye. The eye is just, it's very easy to go round, but it's not. The bunny is just slightly oval here. And so we'll tap some of that around there like that. Let's go now a little bit more burnt sienna. A little bit heavier burnt sienna, so it's got a little more color into it. That'll put some more color in one area. Let's go a bit more blue into that. In other words, what I'm doing is, yeah, these are the common tones, but I changed the tone slightly. And this is what gives so much interest to the eye, as that tone kind of changes around the eye there, okay? Now, into his center is a very dark color, and I'm going to take a little blue, green, and violet. I know from this palette, this is one of the darkest colors I can make on this palette. It's almost a black, and I'm going to just touch in the round pupil of his eye right in there, but I'm not going to do it perfect round. I'm just going to touch that in for right now. And little touches of that color can come up here right around his eye ring and stuff, his eyelids. Right here, there'll be some darks and stuff. Here, let's just pull some of that nice up like this. I'll go right down to his body. A lot of times, you see me, I always tend to paint stuff too big and then paint it back into position. That crossing back and forth, this gives you so much interest. Okay, so I'll leave that in there for a second. I want to reinforce that burnt sienna right here, right up into that area there, so you see a bit of that. Let's just take a small little mark of that up onto the front. Now let's pick out like a color that we can work a lot of his body in, which is one reason why I have the medium beige out here. There's a lot of him there, but I'll use some different colors with that medium beige. And one color that I did not put out, it's on the list, but I did not put out is, and I'm almost out of it here, so we'll put that out. Some yellow oxide here. And so I'll change this burnt sienna. Sometimes a little green. You'll see me use a little green, which grays it beautifully. Warm warm yellow oxide. We can lighten that up and see that's just a real nice light bunny color. If you want to clean off some of your palette, just take a damp paper towel and wipe through. Even though the paint is dried in some areas, you can just run it like this real quick and it'll clean off your area. Save some of it, save some of that color so you can always see where you were. Let's just take some of this light. Let's just work that lighter tone right up around his eye that we see there. A bit of it pulling back this way. Okay, a bit of it underneath here like that. Okay, and let's just lighten that up a bit more here. And we'll work just some touches of it. So I'm working a bit of the detail of the eye here. Just to set it back in. Now there's lots of areas here that I will come back in a little bit more light, a little bit more yellow, slightly different tone, and hit some of those areas again. I'll do this 4 or 5 times as each time my brush mark that I make is going to give a little more interest to the eye. So I will do this several times as I start to build this little bunny here, and use those tones back and forth like that. So that's a good start right there to set that in, but we got a lot more to do. I'll set a few of that light colors that are right in there. So that eye is going to help me a lot, and I'm going to take a bit of that burnt sienna blue right here and just kind of with the corner of the brush draw through that again right there. And so I'll go back and forth several times. This is what's so important, guys. I got a little bit of that light with that, made a lighter blue. It's not keeping the dark, so I'm going to rinse that back out of my brush, reset my brush, and pick up some burnt sienna blue here, keeping it slightly darker, and work the roundness there of his eye again. Back and forth a few times, each time focusing in a little bit more on that. Let's just put a bit of that right up there. And See, I like to work that. That eye is going to be very important. There's a lot we still have to do to the eye because we got these beautiful little shines, and he's got a little wetness in the corner of his eye there, which we will pick up and stuff. And it's not, it just takes a few minutes to do some of this stuff. I'm going to relax my brush, so I'm not going to use my stand to steady my hand. I'm just going to let my hand just kind of pounce around there a bit, and that gives a little more, see, it's a little more crossing of the colors here. That's what gives you a lot of beautiful looks to the painting, where the object is not absolutely perfect. So what I do is I let my hand shakes kind of take over here, and I step way back on my brush and I just blur those edges just a bit here. That makes the softer eye, which I'm going to be looking for here. You know, and let's just go ahead and take a light gray. We'll put the first low light here of the shine of the eye here, but you know, we can reset this. We'll set just that shine of that eye there, and again, like I do everything, I make it a little too big, and then I'll tap into it, tap right into it there to take down the size and its severity there just a bit. So, okay, so I got just the beginnings of the idea of the eye, but see this nice little blurred line that's right in there? And I can come in, or I can do this later. Oh, got a little bit of blue in there. Boy, the blue is dangerous. It'll cool everything out real quick. I don't want to do that. Burnt sienna, yellow, not burnt sienna, but medium beige and yellow. I like those colors. Let's pick up a bit of, I had a bit of water in my brush, a bit more light, a bit of white. Tap that into the brush, and see, I can use that. Don't destroy all of that edge. Just come in here with a few other little marks, and that'll start bringing up more of the eye. See the little detail that you can get in there. Like there's a nice little mark right here pulling back. Here, we'll just tap right along that. And when you're using that modeled brush like that, see, that's what starts giving you that interest. When you're a beginner painter or anywhere that you are in the painting, and especially for me, I used to, when I was a realist, because I was a realist for a long time in painting, and you know, I forget to look for that blurred edge. I get those edges perfect, transition of color perfect, but that blurred edge just helps so much. And so, you know, what I do with a lot of my students is I tell them, you know, we've got to first paint for that blurred edge. You know, that blurred edge is so important. That's what I do a lot in my roses and other things that you see me paint. I paint for that blurred edge, and then I come back in and start. Now I'm going to be just a little bit careful right here to put the upper eyelid on and take out some of that blurriness, and then let that blurriness come back here again, here, as I put that on. And see, that gives you this more, that especially leaving little areas of that blurred line give you more of a real look to it here into the painting, in any kind of portraiture really that you're doing. It's really fun. It just, you know, figuring out where you're going to leave the blur line, where you're going to bring in some of the you know, the detail. Now that I have some of that around there, I might even tap just a little bit of that light warm color right in there too. A little different than what he is on him there. Now that's more of a dot. Let's move it just a little bit more to the line. And it is just a touch heavy, but that warm color's just a touch different. So let's just put that in. So this is the type of thing, you know, that I look for and do here. Let's just lift that up just a bit. There, see? And that starts to give you a nice little eye on your bunny. And it's really a lot of fun. So you're looking for the blurred areas and in here. So we'll apply some of that technique as I look for some of these tones. More of an orangey kind of tone, which is going to be my burnt sienna. Some medium beige. We'll work up here into the front of him here. Medium beige. I can gray that. A beautiful gray you get by and you learn this. Where do we learn these grays? Where have I showed you these grays like this before? Those of you that watch a lot of the channel. The Southwest paintings. This bunny is really the Southwest paintings that we've been doing on the channel here. So I know how to emulate and find his colors from Southwest landscapes that I've painted with you. And so I recognize those colors, and I know how to get to those colors pretty darn quick and easy, you know, on this bunny, because we've done them all together. Let's put a bit of that darker gray, green, and a tiny touch of blue like we did in the Southwest to cool it. Just a touch here. A little too much blue there. Let's just get that back. Yeah, that's perfect right there. Blue, green, burnt sienna, and that makes a real nice tone right in there. We're going to put on too much, and then I'm going to back it back out here. Let's put on a bit coming around his little lines for his whiskers right there. So I'm looking at the undertone here. Where do I see the undertone? The colors underneath. Then I'll look at the colors that are on the top up there. See? You see like a little, almost like a little line outlining his eye there, almost like a little stroke, and we can do that. We don't, maybe not quite that perfect there though, Dave. So take just a bit of that out. Now let's go back to our medium beige and some yellow and some burnt sienna, just a touch of green to help gray that. And let's just work a few smaller. And I'm using just my smaller stiff brush here just to apply the tones. And so I'm letting these tones actually start to suggest his fur. So if you look right in here, now we're not at these little highlights that you see there. We're right down there. That's what I'm looking at. And look at the direction. So here on his nose, it curves up this way a little bit. Let's go just a touch lighter. Maybe half a value here. And let's pull some of that right down here. And if you wipe out too much of a tone, you get the opportunity to go back and put it back in. And then tell yourself, don't paint that much, Dave. You get to go back and put some of that back in there again. So there's that one coming in there. Let's lighten this up just a bit. We'll have a little bit of fun with the bunny here. We'll put this warmer light that we see right in there. Just a bit. It's a bit different. This is all good. Like this little bunny, guys. Those of you that want to paint portraits and stuff with me and want to paint some of this stuff with me, paint this bunny. Because it's, you know, just like going and paint Watson. I made the golden retriever with you. Go paint that one, because I talk about these tones. And this is what you've got to do. If you want, you've got to be able to, you know, color is part of it. Technique is part of it. And here we're using color to help shape our bunny up. Okay, and so, you know, not only the light and shadow planes, but to do the fur here. So let's warm this up, lighten this up, and let's just drag our brush like this, which gives what we call the fractured edge, which will give a little fractured edge on him there. Let's put a bit of that fracturing right up here. See the fractured edge. Now the fusion brush does this. This little guy is doing it really nice. And it's kind of nice to do it with a small little brush like this. So I have a lot of control over the bunny here, I feel. So I kind of like that. And so I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, you know, where I have here. And, you know, I'll say, okay, I see more of a tan right there. So let's just go back. Make that, this is where I was, I'm going to make it slightly darker and maybe take a different type of stroke right in there. And that'll give a, see, that'll loosen it. It won't be exactly the same as what I have over there on the bunny, but it's pretty darn close here. So I set up a light, I set up or set up a dark, I set up a medium value, I go light, then I'm going to come back with some of this other value. Now I'm going to come back and I constantly brush mix, because you could sit here and make a pile of these colors and your bunny will all be the same. So I just kind of change the tones a little bit as I do this, and that'll give him more interest on the way. So I could tap in some more little darks where I see. So I start to look at him as opposed to how light he is there to how light he is, you know, in the painting here. I could have a little more light up a little higher, his eye socket there. And just work small little bits of the tone, and that'll make him look like he's all, you know, bunny haired up there. Okay, let's let's just move on. Now, this is also great. Open medium is fantastic for doing some of this stuff because it's also going to add a little bit of transparency, and so it gives you some great calligraphy here for working areas, especially on the bunny here for hair. So if you put some open medium in some of this, some of these tones will stick around for a long time. But you do want to, I'm a big advocate for constantly changing a little bit. See, putting some of those tones in there is what's constantly changing him. You know, I could take a bit of this tone right up here. We can reinforce that dark just a touch here on him, right there. Maybe down this. And I'm painting too long. I start to paint too long with the same tone, so I change it a bit here. Let's change that up. Just yellow this one up a bit here. I feel, yeah, see, that's a nice, warm, slightly different tone. So I try not to paint too long with the same tone because you'll make him all the same. That's pretty good. Let's lighten that up, warm that, maybe even just a touch of gray here. Push that in, yeah, that's good. It can go lighter here. So this is how I go about it here. Yeah, that's good. And see, it starts to get that. Now that's a little too curved, and his others pull across the front of his nose a little bit. So I'm going to come right in here like that and pull across the front just a bit to capture that calligraphy a little closer to what he is. And yes, I start to get, as I'm looking at these tones, you start to get that finite. Now, a lot of painters ask me and stuff, you know, how do you get to be able to see like that? Just doing this, you know, just painting like this and doing this and having a reference photo and stuff so close, you know. But what's really interesting is I can barely see it here. Up there on the monitor, boy, the change and the blue that you see into the color up there is quite stark. Now, if you're going to paint the bunnies like this or paint a lot of animals like this, another really great color, and boy, I'm almost out of this one too, to have out is, let's see if I can get a little bit out here, is the sapphire. The sapphire and the burnt sienna are fantastic grays. Where did we do that before? The Southwest paintings. You want to see how to get some of these grays, the Southwest painting. Look at these beautiful grays here. And you'll see those grays, especially leaning just a touch more sapphire here. Here you get this kind of a bluish gray right here, just a bit more, and that's the color that you'll see right in there on him. See, it's just a bit more bluish of a gray. And we can emulate it pretty quickly here. A little more sapphire here. Or you can add a touch, vary it with a touch of that phthalo and some of your burnt siennas and stuff. We'll do it as well. Sometimes a little bit of violet, because the phthalo's more of a blue-green. These are all just really great little tones. See the slight difference in there? But you pick up that, and that's a good tone really to have in there also with him. I'll be the artist here for a minute. It's a good tone because we're carrying some of that into the background, and so that'll push him right there into that as well. Okay, so we'll work a bit of this tone. You can even gray it, warm it with that burnt sienna, change it up here a bit, see, slightly warmer. There, leave a little bit of that other blue. Some of this tone will come right down in there. We'll just pull through that a bit. That's a good tone. We can have a bit of that right up in there. Don't really see it too much like right up in here, but I'm going to add it. A little bit of artistic bit there. I'm going to add it. And I'm going to touch a bit of that center line of his nostril there. We'll touch some of that down. There, got that just a hair bit too big right there, so I'm just going to pull down with a little medium tone. See, I like to, you know, I paint stuff. I generally paint stuff too big or too much and then paint it down into position of where I think it needs to be. And that's how I like to approach a lot of things, from flowers to, you know, to bunnies here, to wildlife. good grays, burnt sienna, yellows, and the greens make some nice warm ones. The blues cool it off a bit. There's kind of a nicer warm that one. I'll restate that. Then down below that, slightly yellower and lighter, right down here, coming down this way, that forms that lower part of his mouth. I got that a little too perfect there. So I'll put that tone in there, see, and then I can come back and shape some of that up. Let's cool that off, a little bit of the darker tones here, and just make a stroke real quick for that lower part of his mouth there like that. And then he goes into some of these grays, and some of these grays get a little lighter here. And so I'll pull some of those through. I don't want to go too far without changing it, warming it a bit. See the difference? See how pretty that is when you you change that tone a bit. Let's go a little lighter. Change that right back here like that. Pull that down. Okay. Change the tone. Here, let's pull this down a little lighter. So here I'm just taking this same brush. Now I can do this with any of the brushes, and I like to, but I'm just using the side of the brush. So I don't always use the point of the brush. Here I'm pulling down like this, and I'm looking for that side of the brush there. That gives me that bit of that, different look to that texture. Now, I don't have that quite dark enough back in there. A little bit of blue, burnt sienna back into here. And let's just restate a bit more of that dark right in there. And see, I can go back and forth. Once I set the tones like that, I can go back and forth, working and refining those tones. And I'll look for areas that can slowly go a little lighter, like the front of his head right there. Maybe a few little marks there. He goes up. And let's work. Now, again, this starts to dry up on me. If I want to keep it wet, I just add some open medium or a little extender. But I'm a tone painter, guys. I love to paint with the acrylics because I love the colors to dry. I found when I was an oil painter and when I did a lot of other techniques, I'd paint with the same color over and over again, and I would worry about that color drying on my palette. And by doing so, my paintings all became the same. They didn't have the interest. I'm going to take some of this warm tone right up in here as well. It's going to carry that up, and it's going to get me closer to that little bit of bunny up there. And that's what happens as well. After you get into a tone like this, and you're watching this, your eye starts to see more and more differences of the colors and the tones. So you start picking up more and more. You can start to see colors better as your eye starts to perceive it better. It's kind of like this. Have you ever, come from a light room, and this is very true, guys, okay? Have you ever come from a light room into a dark room? And when you're first there, it is so pitch black that you can't see anything. But then after about 5 minutes, you start seeing things. And they start coming clearer and clearer and clearer. That's as your eye is getting justified to seeing, what's going on. The rods and cones in your eyes are becoming leveled to what's there. And your eye, it's something like 1,000 times a second. White justifies, white balances. But you can see that kind of stuff. And that same thing's going to happen is once you start working this area, your eye is going to start getting fine-tuned more and more and more to little subtle changes in tone. And you as the artist are going to start picking them up and seeing them. And that's if you work in tones. If you just mix it all up and put it on your palette, you won't see it. So here I'll put a little bit of that light. I like that light. Let's come back and reinforce that light right there on the top of his eye. I always go back and revisit some of my interest areas here to see if I need to do that again. And see, I look for little things, like there's a little bit of a light spot stroke that goes up like that off of his eye. And then it comes down, right down through here, through the corner. And it almost joins up right down in there. And see, by taking that stroke there, after some of that is dried, I can get even more interest in there. And I can now, because my eye is becoming more sensitive to everything that's happening on this little bunny, I can see I could have a little bit more smaller light right up there as well. Especially check that one up there. That's the best way. A little more light right in here, up on the front of that. Each time I do this, I take the bunny a little closer and a little closer to what I want here into the painting. Now I'm going to just darken that just a bit, but I like that light stroke. We'll call it the light bunny stroke here. Down this side. Push some of that in him right there. And I lost just a bit of that burnt sienna yellow tone that I had in there. So I'll go revisit that, a little more yellow. Let's just lightly revisit that right in there, that little tone. There we go. So you see that I'm not exactly there, but boy, howdy, it's close enough. You know, it's close enough. And I always say, don't ever put your reference photo next to yours. You know, when you're all done, this is all framed up, he's going to look like a great little bunny. Now, I'm going to take a bit of blue and some burnt sienna here and just darken back through here just a bit more. That's going to cause him to come forward a touch more. Let's just blur that out here. So that pushes little bunny forward here. And I do that before I do this light stroke because of simultaneous contrast. This makes the light tone look lighter. So I want to make sure that I get some of that tone right there before I come in and judge just how light I want to make the back edge of these little strokes here on him there. Because that will change it. Now, so let's go up here to the top of the head. We'll go right over here. Let's put a little open medium in this, so a little bit of transparency, which really works nice for putting in the little fur here. So that little bit of warmer will go back just a touch of the darker through there. If you work these back and forth and smaller touches, you get some really nice looks to your little bunny fur here. You can see that, okay? There we go. Let's put just a touch more on the burnt sienna. Then we'll go down. Now, as I go down, so I'm putting a lot of work in here around his face and stuff. And then as I go down, let's put that darker little tone right down in there. And then as I go down through his body here, I'm going to get just a touch more simplistic. Here, let's just let that light. I do like to leave the light sitting on top of the dark, but it's not that necessary. In other words, I like the light fur sitting on top of the shadow, but it's not all that necessary. I'm going to make a little bit more of a dark blue-green burnt sienna, that kind of stuff, and let's just add just a little bit of that dark. Right there, it's a little darker than what is on him, but that's okay. And so now I can come in here and look to that yellow, orangey kind of lighter tone here. Right on the tip of his nose, right there. I'll just tap through some of that there. That gets pretty close to where he is there. Maybe a bit more burnt sienna, a few touches of that through there. That works out pretty nice, just a little quick. Now, so I like, and you know what, I like everything that's going on that eye. I probably will put that smaller little part of the lower lid right there, which really pulls his eye. Here we go. Just a little touch of that. Gives just a bit more sparkle to his eye. Okay. Overall, he's a little darker, like right in there on the side of his face. That's an easy thing. I can just take some of this open medium and the light color and just pull through that. And I like the open medium because it leaves a little transparency, so I can get some lighter tones on him there. And I like the sides of the brushes like this, so that I don't get perfect and cover up everything. And let's put a bit of that right up in here. A few little touches of that. There, that gets him a bit lighter. He can have a bit more. And I need to bring out the front of his cheek here. So a little bit more yellow and some white. Can even toss in a little medium beige. It's nice. Let's go slightly lighter here. Let's take a look at this one and build up that cheek here. Yeah, that right in there, and that's that cheek that I'm looking at there, and it actually has 2 stages to it. We could do a little lower stage to it, but then I'm gonna paint it back. Since this is up in his face, I'll paint it back with some dark in here again, right back into there, and then reset the light again, back and forth a few times here. There, just get some of those tones in there like that. And not exactly the same, but not bad. And I could see it's not exactly the same. And there comes a point, you know, I give a lot of advice and mentor a lot of artists and stuff. There comes a point you're not exactly the same. You've got to let some things go. Otherwise, you work on it so much and it becomes stiff, and it's just not as pretty. So, you know, okay, catching the lightness, that's very important. Now my little blue burnt sienna dried up there, so we'll just go grab a little bit more of that gray. See, and that's a great thing. It's a slightly different tone. Yeah, see, that's just a beautiful little tone right there. And let's take that burnt sienna and blue, maybe just a touch of that phthalo and a touch of green. Sometimes I'll even add a bit of that red. Just makes a slightly different color tone wise. See, a bit of that dark just helps really pop out some of him there. Okay, it's a little darker than what he is there, but that's okay. And maybe a bit more of that right back down in here again, stating some of those grays. See, each time I do this, he's slowly building a little more and a little more there. I'm getting closer and closer to what the bunny is, and at some point in time you just got to say, okay, that's enough. You know, we're not painting the Mona Lisa, we're painting a quick little cottontail here. We're getting a nice little look to him. Now, what I'm going to do is, that was my number 4. I did all of that face there with that number 4, same one I did his eye with. I'm going to go back to my number 8 here, and I'm going to use some extender and stuff as I start to put on some of these other tones, because I want to stay a bit more transparent and a bit more simplistic. I want to leave, see what happens when I start to put this in. Your eye really focuses in here on his eye, and I want to leave that. So I'm going to use basically the same types of tones here, a little gray. I'll thin it with some extender. I'll do some, maybe a bit of the yellowish there as well, I see in this area. Kind of follow what I see on the bunny's fur here, and try to state it, everything that I do, very simplistic. So here's some, let's go just a touch darker, a little bit of burnt sienna and green gives you that beautiful warmer gray, which is kind of in a warmer area here. So we'll stay kind of some quick little stabs like this. Colors are a little bit more transparent than what I was opaque up there in those lights here, like that. Okay, and then we'll come in, we'll lighten up, we'll go to the warm, some light, some yellow here, some whites here with this. Okay, and we'll add just some quick, and see if it's wet like that, you get this kind of a blur look. And sometimes I hold my brush this way here, so I get some of this real quick fur look. So that extender keeps it wet, and this just tap that around. Now the thing is, when you're emulating stuff like that, don't do it, don't hang around there too long, and don't use the same tone too long. You'll just make him all the same. So just quick little touches here, like this, and it takes a lot of bravery. And if you get something too light, we just come back and push it back in again. there. So we'll push some of that in. So we're back over here. We're thinning out some burnt sienna, some green, some of these colors and tones. We'll push that in right there. I like that red, that burnt sienna there. Let's go burnt sienna, a little Diarylide Yellow. It's a beautiful, real bright. See that warm? That basically captured some of that tone in him. Some of that can go right over here. Diarylide Yellow is a beautiful painting undertone. And we can, and I'm a firm believer, if you use it someplace, go touch it someplace else. So let's just go touch a touch of that around our little bunny in a few areas here. You know, just to get just a bit more of that color carrying around. It's beautiful color. And then all your beautiful grays, burnt sienna, greens here. You can add some medium beige, some grays. You could have a touch of blue. All these various beautiful grays here. Work with this. Add some extender so this stays wet for a few minutes. Here. Work some of that. Follow the calligraphy that you see on your bunny. Let's lighten that up a bit. And we'll just take some real quick little touches here that will help, you know, give his feeling of his body and stuff. But I don't want to get all this little hair detail that I did. I don't want it back there because that will tend to flatten him out. Just too much interest. So I want to, you know, I want to play the larger strokes, a little bit of hair and stuff out through here, but I don't want to get wrapped up in too much detail. I want it to be quick here. I want the center of interest to be down here into him, around his eye and stuff, where we have that. So we'll be a little careful. Let's lighten and warm it a bit. We'll be a little careful how much stroke interest we give some of this around here. So if I hold the brush real fast, see, I can get that look of some of that fur and hair. Set a bit of it over your dark. Don't forget the structure of his leg here. So maybe a little heavier here pulling down, which is kind of the structure of his leg right there. Okay. And a bit of it pulling right down in here. Now, if you get too much, which generally happens a lot, if you get too much, then you just come back in and restate your darks. As you go to his back legs here, darken them down here and go simplistic. Just some color movement here. That's all it needs. There. Stay simplistic. We're going to let it kind of fade away. Let's go yellow, medium beige, bit of light here. Let's stay simplistic here. We'll put it in the front. See that? We're going to let some of this areas just kind of, this is the fun part of the painting for me. It's the part of the painting where I do it real quick. I'm going to go back to my extender. Now, see, when I paint this area here, his foot's going to come here. This is going to be his body. And so I'll look for some of the darkest tones I see there. Not very much. So I'm going to use some transparent, basically medium tone of him. Push that in. And then I'll come back over here to where I was doing some of this light and just pull through a bit, leaving a few brush calligraphy streaks there. And that's all it needs. Let's darken this a bit so you can go back and forth. Just going to push some of that back. That looks good. I want to build his shoulder a bit more. So let's get some lights, warms. Here, maybe a bit of that yellow. Model that into the brush here. Let's build his shoulder a bit more. See, quick, I touch and lift off, and that gives the look of the fur here. Now, don't play too long there, Dave. You'll be all the same. Let's pull a longer stroke down here, which gives the look of his leg. Okay, could be a little heavier here. There we go, something like that. Gives the look of his leg there. Okay. There's just a bit slightly darker coming down the hair right down through there. And you can lighten that up and create a a bit more of a fur look just by smaller taps there. But that's pretty good there, okay? And maybe I like some of these like little stutters here that just show some of his fur this way, like that. So I'm just picking out some areas. Now we can go, there can be some darker there. Let's get some burnt sienna green right there. We could get a bit darker, and a bit more, and maybe even a touch of that phthalo blue, which really helps you gray out here, right like that. Here, get some of that other grays in there, little spots of them. So see, you can go back and forth painting this fur, but I would advise, and I'm having a lot of fun painting it, that's why I'm continuing to do it, but I would advise kind of against it because we want to keep him kind of simplistic. Let's just, back here, take some medium beige and just drop that in there. See, all of those little tones in there really make him kind of cute. And so as much as I see, you know, yellows and, you know, there's more stuff, like you could have a yellow, you know, stripe of it more right in there on him and everything. You know, here comes the question to each individual artist. How much are you going to show and how much are you going to let just fade away? I like that Diarylide too, with that burnt sienna. So that becomes each individual artist will be a little different. Comes the nature, you know, how much of this are you going to work in there and show on this painting? I'm always, every time I take a stroke, I'm looking back up to his eye, which I determine isn't going to be my center of interest. And I'm looking really for how much interest I'm going to give him for that eye. And I'll do some simplistic stuff there. And let's take a little bit of burnt sienna yellow, Diarylide yellow here. Some of the sides of his foot are right in there. Take a bit of the greenish kind of color, a little darker right there. More of the yellow, beige, and white up towards a quick, you know, touch of color here to the front of his leg there, where his leg's going to be. Maybe I see that nice pull of light here, right down here, which kind of makes that part of his leg. A little bit of scumbling, maybe even more gray. Just scumble bunny color here, right there. And that works, that all works in there. Maybe a bit more of a down pull right down through here. It's just the calligraphy. What do you see in the calligraphy there? That's pretty good. Now I think I will put, I'm going to bring up just a touch more of my dark. So all your grays, your burnt siennas, greens, blues, touch more of this darker gray right up through here and through him. There we go. And it just helps him recede as well. And I really like, you know, about the rabbits and stuff and stuff, the rabbits in here. Hey, you look at that. That's camera one. Those of you who paint with me all the time, that's camera one. It's sitting at sitting back there at 8 feet. So this is what it's going to look like hanging in the gallery and stuff. So a lot of times when I'm watching right here, I have a monitor that sees the bunny here at 8 feet. What that camera is showing, what you're seeing in some of the things. So I'm seeing that what that bunny looks like at 8 feet, and so I judge a lot of that detail. And like I tell you in a lot of the videos, if you don't have that kind of setup like I do here at the studio, what you need to do is just get up every few minutes. Get up, get back, take a look at it, what it looks like a little further away. Here's a little bit of our yellows and burnt siennas to give the indication of that back leg. I want just a little lighter, kind of fuzzy little edges here. Some of the little hairs that can be on him. And you can get that just by tapping it into one side of your your flat. And you see how you can get even more little hairs. I don't need to use a small little liner brush here, which wouldn't really work with some of the technique I'm doing here. You know, and I'm just, so I just kind of do this, tap the brush heavier on one side, and I use the brush more onto the chisel here. And it can give some looks of the hair, especially this paint that's underneath here is starting to dry up now and causes it to drag just a bit. And that's what I like when the surface, and you know, it's one I didn't always like about oils is that they're always slippery and stuff, and that's fine. But I like it to grab and get sticky. And when that happens, you can just use your brush real light, especially like this, and create the little hairs really easy. Here, create his little fur, very easy here. Little light strokes, get that interest in there. Here. Just like that. Maybe a little light stroke. So as the painting starts to tack up, I use just a bit of the corner of the brush and some thicker, sticky paint, and it's really, really easy to draw little hairs like that. Now, that right there is totally annoying. So we'll just take some greens and some burnt siennas. Take some of that out here. That works pretty nice. Now, he's very vertical, and everything and all this stuff I work on my background there is pretty vertical, you know, so I'm going to take some of this. You know, how much more are you going to do on him? I'm not really all that sure. Probably not too much, because I want him to stay kind of simplistic, and I really do like the eye and everything and working around the eye. Plus, we're at a minute and 10, an hour and 10, so we're getting pretty close. Let's put a couple of a nice strong horizontal here, which helps break the verticals sometimes, some of those horizontals there. And let's give a little more green and burnt sienna. Here, I love those two colors together. Nice little dark. Like that's going to be the edge of a little plant. We can put a plant right back there. Little green kind of plant. We can put the little rock and stuff that you see in there as well. We can take some of this gray, lighter color gray and green. We can push some grass and stuff up here if we want. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do. But if I can start softening out some of the areas of him here to bring him forward. So let's take a little bit of this soft blue. Just add some water here. Just reconstitute that. Becomes a softer gray here that we can use this gray just as a light color up over the color. I call it a foil color. It takes away some of the light dark streak contrast of what was there from the original thought of the painting. And here, and we'll push some of that back there. So there's a big thing in wildlife painting. I'm going to do sapphire this time because I did that first with phthalo. So I'm going to do a little sapphire and white. You know, a lot of the wildlife, you always see me come back and I always suggest, you know, paint back to your subject. A little bit of negative painting around there helps bring that subject forward. I do it with birds. I do it with, when you see me paint all kinds of things, the antelopes, all that kind of stuff. Look at how much farther forward he comes. And I control that by the value here. And sometimes if he is very vertical, I'll pull horizontal. So I give a contrasting brush stroke here. So like I would pull right here, a nice horizontal right up to his nose. And then let that just kind of fade away here, scumble that out, and you'll see that right there coming a little different. Now, let's play here. Let's give the bunny some brighter little greens, maybe some open medium in this so it has a bit of transparency. let's give a little bit of the, you know, I see some little touches of green around there that I do like. Maybe a bit of yellow oxide in that. So it's not, it's more yellow green, but not powerful here. Yeah, I like that. Let's just push that like it's a, you could put, I even thought you could come in here if you want to do something, you know, for a little girl or something like that. You can come in here and put little daisies and stuff like that around there. Do all different kinds of things, you know, in your painting here. All different kinds of looks and things you can do here. But just, you know, pulling and working some greens like this will help put in some of these nice little light, very impressionistic. That's what I want here. You know, yellows, greens, some stuff going on there like that. We could take a bit of this, maybe a bit more pine green here, and just put in a little bit, maybe a little bit over there crossing around him. Do you want to put in that little rock? There's all kinds of stuff you can do, you know. Do we want to put in a couple of little rocks that we see here? You know, because he is out here in nature, you know. And so you can put in a couple little rocks or stones here for him. Let's see, light's coming this way. Light's going to be back up this way. So we'll put a little light plane here. I'll do it just very simplistic here. A little light plane. Let's take a little green, a little red and green. They're beautiful grays as well, especially there for the rock. Complement grays here. Put in a little rock shape, a little bit of blue into that. Change that tone a bit. You know, if I do detailed rocks, I paint them quite a bit, but here we'll just do some simplistic little stones there. Idea here. There we go. There, just enough to kind of say, okay, there's something going on around there with him and looking at that, but not enough to, you know, to completely take away from everything that he's doing. I want that. I don't want to have so much stuff going on up here that, you know, it detracts from him. So I'm going to soften this edge just a bit and put in some ideas of just quick brushwork here. You know, nothing fancy, just quick brushworks and stuff here. And I think I will bring up this side of his body here, just a bit of that. This is your call, how much you're going to bring up. Now, that was a bit too much, but you know, I'm known for that. So we'll just back that off just a bit there. So you get that better feeling of his, what's going on. But you know, little flowers back there or something like that, if you want to, you know, add those in there, that's all really great. You can make some darker, you know, that burnt sienna and green is just wonderful stuff. You know, make some darker colors, tones, stuff going on back there. He kind of blends into it. You know, it's like the little bunnies here around our gallery and our building and stuff here. They're all over. They live underneath our porch, and they look a lot like the lawn, especially when I forget to water it. But they hide down, and they get down real low, and they hide down, fold their ears down. You know, you can't see me. They're really, really cute. But they do. They look a lot like their environment. So the colors and stuff. So, you know, it's up to you how much you're going to bring him out here. Maybe I'll bring up this shoulder area here. Go back to my lights, some yellows, some of these grays. I'm just going to grab some of this, even some of this green. It's a totally different tone here. See, I kind of like that kind of look there. Let's just bring that up a bit more. Slightly greenish, so it's a different, not quite as warm But see, that's a good tone to what's on him there. So a little bit more green and light here. Let's just drop that in. See, that gives a good look. Just a quick hit or two there on his leg there. Let's make a quick hit or two of that right in here. Push that back and forth. There. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's just all real fun stuff. So you can see, and you can build him up even after it's starting to dry here and tack up with that extender and stuff. It starts to tack up. You can come back and add more stuff to him. And if you want, I mean, you can, if you find that you really need to work with something, you can always go back there and put on a light coat of extender and do it again. You know, put some light coat of extender on the surface there, put some darks in, and rework him again. You know, that extender is great. So, but if you have to do a lot, rerun through your color progressions, your shadows, your midtones, your lights. If you're doing just a little like this, a few little, you know, touches of some darker tone, then you can just do this, just touch and lift real quick with that fusion brush, because that's the key to it. You know, different brushes are made to do different things. We designed these fusion brushes for these types of techniques that I show you here. So a lot of people ask me questions and stuff all the time. I show you stuff that we designed after all these years of painting and doing this stuff. We designed brushes, tools, paints, and everything to do these types of techniques that I show you. Not all acrylics can do this. Not all brushes can. Look at this. See the difference? See that beautiful little work? And you can give a lot of work there to your little bunny if you want. You know, and it's just a great little look. But not every brush is going to do this. Not every paint is going to be able to paint like this. And so, you know, that's, you know, you can give it a try and stuff with the colors and stuff that you use. But I'm here to show you how to use these and understand these colors, these paints, these brushes, and do some fantastic, fun, quick stuff. I mean, look at this. This painting here. See, I'm just building that a little bit more while I'm talking, because I talk too much. But you know, we're an hour and 20 minutes, and you have yourself a nice little painting. You know, and so imagine, you know, when I do a commission painting, when I put a couple days into it, how much detail you could actually get into that painting. You could get a lot of detail there into that painting with a couple of days of work, you know. But you know, and simplistic too, you know, simplistic. But not everything can do these techniques, and so people write to me, you know, all the time. Well, I tried this with oils, it didn't work. I tried this with these acrylics, it didn't work. Well, yeah, because different acrylics are made to do different techniques, different things. Not all acrylics are the same. Oh, I like that. I'm going to stop on that before I paint that too much. Not all acrylics are the same. You know, all of my 40 years of this in chemistry, starting out as a paint chemist, I designed 4 different complete paint systems for these different paint companies, acrylic systems, and an oil system. All of them were completely different. None of them that I did before Heritage here can really do what I'm doing here. They can't. They are formulated to do other things. They do other things and excel at other things. So, you know, and so the acrylic you may be using, don't get frustrated. The acrylic you may be using may not be formulated to do those particular things. So make certain changes to the technique so you can paint it, or change your paint. That's just what you got to do. You know, here I'm just going to warm up that front side of that eye just a bit. That looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, I'll probably go have lunch here now and then see something else that it needs on there. But I kind of like that little painting just like that. Okay, so he's a fun little guy. Well, we took about an hour and 20 minutes to paint him. You know, you could add more to them. You can do all different kinds of stuff to it. Hopefully you enjoy that. He's a fun little painting, okay? And if you have questions or anything, just write those questions down in the comments. If you look through all my videos, you'll see that I try to answer all your comments there. I try to. We're getting more and more and more, so it's becoming more difficult. Those of you that are into memberships, I'll put my final photo. I'll put the reference photo, one that you can download and blow up and put on a big monitor, and you will see those tones and stuff a heck of a lot better than you do just looking at a printed thing of the photo there, okay? And look for this next week where I'm going to show you some of the drawing, a little bit more of the drawing, because the drawing is very important so that when you notice an area is off on your painting, you can go back and you can fix that. And there's certain things that I would fix, you know, like, and certain things that I let go. Let me just show you, for example, here, okay? I got his head too wide right here. And so, but that makes him fuller and fluffier, and I kind of like that. He's a little cleaner and a little thinner right there, so I came too far out on that line. And your drawing skills train your eye to see those kinds of little things that you might be off. But in the videos, I'll show you some ways that you can find what might be off without having those drawing skills. I'll show you some different techniques and little tricks to that. The question becomes, do I correct that, you know? And no, I don't think I will correct that. You know, I could. We could take a look at it. But the thing is, if I think it's not a real big deal to the cuteness of the bunny, he just looks a little bit, you know, thicker there, you know, with that. But I could correct it. Let's just put a little bit on here so your eye can see a little bit learning here. Then we'll call the video closed. But I also had a person write there one time who goes, oh, you know, I painted one of these animal portraits, and he goes, oh, this person, he's off right here on this, and you know, it just ruins it for me. And I said to him, I was like, wow, you have absolutely no clue, because when we got done, before I put that on there, we imposed it on the original to see just if there are any areas off, myself and 3 other artists, and there was not an area that's off. So it was like, wow, you know, I mean, every one of us will see stuff a little differently, but watch what happens here. So I'll thin this down just a bit. We'll fracture the edge a bit so we don't have, and then that changes the whole, basically the whole look of this little bunny right there, see? It thins down his head, takes him a little closer to what that was there. That is drawing skills. That, in looking at that, that's a skill. So the technique is telling me what to do with the brush. The color is telling me what to do with the tone. The drawing skills is telling me where I might be off one, you know, area or not. But there's a lot of times that if it's off a little bit, I'll let it go, because it's not important to the overall look of what, because I'm not doing an actual realism. I'm just painting a bunny. Okay, having some fun. Don't forget to click like to the thing. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for joining me on this artistic journey. We have a lot more. Gonna do the Western back there. Have a lot of fun with some more Western. Also have a man standing up onto a horse. Got to do that. And yeah, we have a lot more paint. And I still have that church down in Louisiana we're going to be painting. And a bunch more that we're going to paint, dashing through the snow. Got a bunch of snow lined up for us to paint. Have some fun with it. Okay? There you guys go. Have fun with it. And I'll see you on the next one. Okay? All right.